Hi students, welcome back to BioWin channel. So we are today going to discuss about sexual reproduction in flowering plants, part 3, that is pollination. Hope I think already you have watched our part 1 and part 2 videos with reference to sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Let us go ahead with pollination. So what is pollination? Before going to the definition, we know that the male gamete is produced in the pollen grain and the female gamete is produced in the embryo sac. Both are non-motile. Now, these both gametes have to come together to meet for fertilization. So, pollination is one such mechanism where the male gametes reach the female gametes. So, let us observe what is the definition of pollination. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma is called as pollination. We know that flower has stigma and there is a ovary and inside there is an embryo sac. These pollen grains which are produced in the anther lobe has to reach to the stigma. So this transfer of pollen grains from the anther lobe to the stigma is called as pollination. So now we come to the kinds of pollination. There are mainly two kinds of pollination. So one is called autogamy, other is allogamy. It's also known as self-pollination. This is cross-pollination. So let us observe what is autogamy. In this type of pollination, where you can see the pollination takes place within the same flower. If the pollen grains from the anther lobe to the stigma is transferred within the same flower, it is called as autogamy. It is also known as self-pollination. So complete autogamy is rather rare in the nature because it requires synchronous development of both pollen release as well as stigma receptivity. And the anthers and the stigma should also lie very close to each other. So, to compensate this one, there will be more number of pollen grains produced than the ovules. Coming to the types of autogamy, self-pollination. The first one is chasmogamous. The other one is cleistogamous. In the plants like viola, common pansy, oxalis, commelina, you can see two types of flowers produced. And one is called chasmogamous, the other is called as cleistogamous. In the chasmogamous type of pollination or flower, you can see the anther lobe as well as the stigma lie very close to each other and there is synchronous release of pollen grains and the stigma receptivity. So in this type, self-pollination is very easy as the flowers are open and both male and female mature at the same time and there is transfer of pollen grains from the anther lobe to the stigma of that same flower. Coming to cleistogamous type of flowers. These are flowers which do not open and the male and female may mature at different time, but still as the flower is closed, the anther lobe produces pollen grains which reach to the stigma within the same flower itself. So these cleistogamous flowers are said to be invariably autogamous because there is no need of any pollinators. As the flower is closed, compulsory there will be pollination and they produce assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. Yes, because as pollination takes place within the same flower and flower is closed, there is no need of pollinators and compulsory or guarantee we can say that the flowers will produce assured seed set. Coming to allogamy, that is cross pollination. When the pollination takes place within the different flowers, it's called as allogamy or cross pollination. So here pollination will not be within the same flower, it will be of different flowers. We have different types here. One is called geitonogamy, the other is called xenogamy. Geitonogamy is a type of pollination where the transfer of pollen grains takes place from one flower to other flower of the same plant. So from one flower to the other flower of the same plant, it's called as geitonogamy. The another one is xenogamy. Xenogamy is transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of different flowers of different plants, not within the same plant. It will be of different plants. So such type is called as xenogamy. When you see this geitonogamy and xenogamy, geitonogamy is also self-pollination because here the flowers are different but they are present on the same plant. And xenogamy is different flowers of the different plant brings genetically different types of pollen grains on the stigma. So you can say xenogamy is a purely cross-pollination, cross-pollinated flowers. It can bring genetically variable in the plants. This is all about pollination. Now we discuss about pollinating agents. So plants usually use two abiotic and one biotic agents to achieve pollination. Majority of the plants use biotic agent and few of them use abiotic agent as agent for the pollination. So here the pollen grains coming in contact with the stigma is a very chance factor in both wind as well as water type of pollinating agents. So to compensate this one, there is enormous amount of pollen grains produced when compared to the number of ovules available for pollination. So let us discuss the abiotic agent. First one, wind as a pollinating agent. So pollination by wind is common amongst abiotic pollinations. Wind pollinations also requires that pollen grains are very light. They are not colorful and they should be non-sticky, so that as the wind blows they have to move from one place to other place. They do not have nectar, so nectarless. They should have well exposed stamens. There should be large feathery stigma where pollen grains can be trapped easily. Then single ovule in each ovary. Then flowers, when they are small, they should be packed as an inflorescence. Example, corn cob. When you see the tassels of the corn cob, they are feathery. So easily they can trap the pollen grains from the wind. And this wind pollination is common in grasses. So these are the modifications of the plants for wind pollination. Next is water pollination. So here this is very rare in the plants and only about 30 genera from the monocots follow this water pollination. We have seen in the lower plants like algae, bryophyte, pteridophytes, water is the main medium for pollination. We're taking the example of Vallisneria as well as Hydrilla, which are freshwater plants, as well as Zostera, seagrass, marine water. Let us study how this pollination is achieved by water. In Vallisneria, if you take, the plants grow from the bottom of the water and the flower emerges outside. So here the female flower come to the surface of the water, so that the male flowers from the bottom releases pollen grains and they reach the stigma passively through the water current, and thus pollination is achieved in the Vallisneria. Water hyacinth as well as water lily, in this type of plants, the flower emerge outside the water, above the water, and then the pollination is achieved by the wind as well as insect, not by the water. the pollen grains are protected by wetting. They have a covering called mucilaginous covering and they get protected. Coming to the biotic agent. So the pollination by the animals is called as biotic pollination. Majority of the flowering plants use a range of animals as pollinating agents. You take the example like bees, moths, butterflies, flies, wasps, beetles, ants, some of the birds like sunbird and hummingbird, and bats. Even large animals like primates, lemurs, arboreals which are tree dwelling, rodents, reptiles like gecko lizard and garden lizard help for pollination. And this often flowers of animal pollinated are specifically adapted for a particular species of animal. You take example like the flowers pollinated by flies and beetles. They secrete a foul odor to attract the animals. And here the flowers are also modified, like they are large, colorful, as well as they have a fragrant and very rich in nectar. And when the flowers are very small, they aggregate together to form an inflorescence. So like this, the flowers are modified even in the animal, which help for pollinations. To sustain the animal visits, these flowers produce floral rewards or supply floral rewards to these animals. So actually the floral rewards are in the form of pollen grains and nectar. And this sometimes there are some flowers like Amorphophallus. This flower, Amorphophallus, the flower is about 6 feet height, and this flower provides a safe place to lay the eggs of the moths. Like this, one more example, we have the species of moth as well as yucca. Yucca plant and the species of moth. The species of the moth as well as yucca cannot complete their life cycle without each other. The moth deposits its eggs in the ovary of the yucca flower and in turn gets pollinated by the moth. And the larvae of the moth, when they come out of the eggs, the seeds start developing. So like this, both are interdependent upon each other. So many insects may consume pollen or the nectar without bringing about pollination. Such floral visitors are referred to as pollen nectar robbers. So this is all about pollinating agents. Let us discuss outbreeding devices. So majority of the flowering plants produce hermaphrodite flowers, and pollen grains are likely to come in contact with the same flower, and this results, continuous self-pollination results into inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression means loss of vital characters of the plant. So because of that, very important characters are lost. The flowers may fail to produce seeds. So continuous self-pollination results in inbreeding depression. So to avoid this, to discourage self-pollination and to encourage cross-pollination, the plant species have tried to develop different adaptations, like pollen is released and stigma receptivity are not synchronized. Like first one, pollen release and stigma receptivity are not synchronized. Means male releases pollen grain, antelope releases pollen grain at different time, stigma have the receptivity at different time. So like this they can avoid self-pollination. Another one is anther and stigma are placed at different positions. If this is anther, the stigma will be here. So like this, at different positions, this male and female anther and stigma are placed so that they can avoid the self-pollination. Another one is self-incompatibility. So here, this is a third mechanism where you can see this is a type of genetic mechanisms that prevents self-pollen, that is which is produced from the same flower, cannot germinate on the stigma of the same flower. So it will not allow that pollen germination on the pistil. So it can have the self-incompatibility. So last one is production of unisexual flowers. Male flowers separate and female flowers separate. Example, we have castor and maize. Both are monoecious. So they have both male and female present in the same plant. Here they prevent autogamy. That is, the pollen grains do not have the pollination within the same flower, but they can pollinate on the other flower of the same plant. So not geitonogamy. They can prevent autogamy but not geitonogamy. When you take papaya, which is dioecious plant, male plant is separate and female plant is separate. Here they can prevent autogamy as well as geitonogamy because the pollination takes place by xenogamy, where the flower of the one plant will pollinate the flower of the other plant. Pollen pistil interaction. So this is a type of interaction of the pollen grain as well as pistil. The pistil has the ability to recognize whether the pollen is of right type or wrong type. If it is of right type, it is called compatible. If it is wrong type, it is called as incompatible. So here, if the pollen is of right type, the pistil will accept the pollen grains and promotes the post-pollination events that occurs during fertilization. If the pollen is of wrong type, the pistil rejects the pollen by preventing the pollen germination on the stigma or the pollen tube growth in the style. So this ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen followed by its acceptance or rejection is a result of continuous dialogue between the pollen grain as well as pistil. This is called as pollen pistil interaction. So here this is all mediated. All interaction of the pollen and the pistil is mediated by a chemical components which are present on the stigma as well as pollen grain. So as mentioned earlier, so compatible pollination, the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce pollen tube through one of the germ pores. When you take this so if pollen grains germinate on this, start producing pollen tube. So here the compatible pollination, the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce the pollen tube and it germinates through the germ pore and the contents of the pollen tube content of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube and reaches to the ovule. This pollen tube germinates and passes through the tissues of the stigma style and reaches to the ovary. And here pollen grains may be shed at the 2-celled stage or 3-celled stage as studied earlier. So if it's in 2-celled stage, then the generative cell divides into 2 male gametes in the pollen tube. And if it is 3-celled stage, already 2 male gametes will be produced by the generative cell inside the pollen grain, and the 2 male gametes will pass into the pollen tube and reach the ovule. In the ovary, when the pollen tube enters, the pollen tube may enter through chalaza or sometimes through integuments and most of the time through the micropyle. So we know that in the micropyle there are two synergids with the egg. When the pollen tube enters into the micropyle, there the synergids with the filiform apparatus guide the pollen tube to come inside. All these events from pollen deposition to on the stigma until the pollen enters into the ovule are together referred as pollen pistil interaction. It's a dynamic process where pollen recognition followed by promotion or inhibition of the pollen takes place. So this helps in the plant breeders in manipulating pollen pistil interaction even in compatible pollinations to get desired hybrids. Now let us start artificial hybridization. This is one of the major approach for crop improvement program. So here only the desired pollen grains are allowed to pollinate and others are discarded. This is done by two techniques. One is emasculation, the other one is bagging. If the female parent bears bisexual flowers, removal of anthers from the flower bud before the anther dehisces is called emasculation. This step is done by using forceps and the anther lobes are removed so that pollen grains will not be liberated. So before liberation, before dehiscence of the pollen grain, the anther lobe is removed. So it is called as emasculation. So after emasculation, the emasculated flowers have to be covered with the bags of generally made up of butter paper and to prevent contamination by other pollen grains, that is by other unwanted pollen. That process is called bagging. So when the bagged flowers attain receptivity, then there is pollen grains from the anthers of the male parent are dusted on the stigma and then they are rebagged and allowed to develop. So like this, in bisexual flowers, the artificial hybridization process is achieved. If the female parent bears unisexual flowers, there is no need of emasculation because there will be no anther lobes inside. So as only female is present, they are bagged and then when required, the other pollen grains are dusted inside and they are rebagged. So thus artificial pollination is carried out using the desired pollen and the flower is rebagged. So like this artificial hybridization is achieved. If you have any queries, please post in the comment box. Until now, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it, share it and comment. Thank you.